Just about everybody in the country would like to know the best debt reduction strategies for them, but almost nobody knows the best way to efficiently go about reducing debt. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, so that you can know the best strategies and the best implementation of reducing debt in the most efficient way. The first thing to realize is that not all debt is bad, and obviously not all debt is good. So the first thing that I like to do is to go through the various types of debts that there are, the various types of debt that I have, and figure out which ones I need to address first, which ones are efficient debts, and which ones are inefficient debts. The way that we do that here at Wealth Factory is through the cash flow index. It's a special formula that we've created to help identify efficient debts and remove them from the conversation so that we could focus on eliminating inefficient debts. The reason this is so important is because people are constantly chasing returns, constantly looking at which investment should I go for that's going to create the most return for me. And a lot of times, if people have inefficient debt, the best return is actually eliminating that inefficient debt first. When I say inefficient debt, typically what we're looking at is personal loans, credit card loans, sometimes auto loans, pretty much anything that's high interest rate, short terms, and taking up a lot of your monthly cash flow. And also loans or debts that aren't contributing to cash flowing assets. That's what an inefficient loan is. It's something that creates a higher return than what it's costing us in interest. And so by using the cash flow index, we're able to identify that. And that's one of the key things that we use here at Wealth Factory when we start working with new individuals, is looking at their debt load and finding out the best way to eliminate their inefficient debts. You've probably heard of the snowball technique. You pay off one loan, and then you take all of the cash flow savings from that, eliminating that one loan and putting it into the next one. And that's a great strategy. But what people sometimes do incorrectly is they start with targeting the loans that have the highest interest rate because they think that's costing them the most. And so by targeting the highest interest rate loans, they'll be able to get that snowball effect going faster. But that's sometimes correct, sometimes not. What we actually want to look at is the cash outflow that a debt is requiring relative to the balance, right? That's what the cash flow index helps us figure out. And so what we want to do is we want to find the loan that takes up the most of our cash outflow, and then we have the lowest relative balance with that so that we could pay off that lowest balance debt first, take all of that cash flow that debt was taking from our personal finances and put it into the next loan. And so by doing that, we're able to get that snowball effect going that much faster. Once you've removed all of your inefficient debt, what we need to look at next is how to leverage efficient debt to increase your cash flow and accelerate your journey towards economic independence. What we talked about just a minute ago before talking about inefficient debts were the types of efficient debts that we can get. And those are debts that create a larger return than they take from us. One great example of this is real estate. Let's say you got a mortgage, 5% interest rate, and you were able to purchase a rental property, and the return on that rental property is, let's say, 10 to 15% cash on cash return. Well, what that's telling us is that maybe it's costing us 5% over 30 years, but we're getting well over 10% in return over 30 years and then some. So that's the kind of conversation that we need to have, is how do we eliminate inefficient debts and turn them into efficient debts that help us create and acquire cash flowing assets. Now, one thing that everybody needs to realize is that there's no silver bullet for this. And sometimes there are additional things that we need to look at. So far, what we've only talked about is paying off loans. Well, what about refinancing or restructuring debts, right? Refinancing would be closing down a line of credit and opening it up again. The most common, of course, is a house, but you can also do it with a vehicle or other types of loans. We can refinance it, push it out to a longer term, hopefully reduce our interest rate and thus decrease our cash outflow. And then once again, we're working with the snowball effect, right? Any cash flow we save by refinancing a loan, we're going to put that into inefficient loans. If we don't have any inefficient loans, then we take that excess cash flow that we just got from that refinance and we put it into more efficient loans, into our business, into our cash flowing assets, so that we can once again increase our passive income and increase our ability to live in economic freedom. Now, that's refinancing. Let's talk about restructuring. We also like to look at restructuring loans. This is going to be different than refinancing because when you refinance a loan, you typically close a loan and open a new one. And what that does is it actually decreases your average credit history or length of credit, which can reduce your credit score. And so by restructuring, we're typically just negotiating a lower interest rate or maybe skipping some payments or pushing out that term a little bit longer without doing a full refinance. That might require a credit pull, which might ding your credit score temporarily, but it's going to have a less dramatic effect on your credit score than a complete refinance will. So we like to look at restructuring first, then refinancing, and then reallocating. So we restructure to recapture cash flow, we refinance to recapture cash flow, and then we reallocate. So all of the cash flow savings that we get from either restructuring or refinancing, we reallocate it to either inefficient loans to pay those off and eliminate them, or we reallocate them to cash flow performing assets or businesses. The last strategy that we like to look at for reducing debt and recapturing cash flow from that debt reduction is consolidation. A lot of people think of this as just a simple maybe balance transfer from one credit card to another for a zero interest rate period to reduce their cash flow or to be able to pay that credit card off faster. And that's totally reasonable. But what we can also look at is consolidating debts into one bigger loan or a collateralized loan, right? So we're looking at HELOCs. We're looking at maybe refinancing a car to absorb some credit card debt. So there's a lot of different strategies that you can look at for consolidating inefficient debts into an efficient debt to be able to recapture cash flow and eliminate your inefficient debts that much faster. There's no one right way to do this, and depending on your situation, your credit score, your debts, your assets, there's going to be a different way to do this correctly, which is why it's important to have a financial architect in your corner helping you figure out the best way to do this. Fill out the Wealth Architecture questionnaire so that we can start working with you to eliminate debt and get you to that point of economic independence faster.
Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Don't miss out on a single Wealth Factory tip like this next one with proven ways to build your wealth.